Hello, book lovers and English learners. Welcome to Lydia's Book Club podcast, your weekly dose of reading in English. I'm Lydia Bureau, I'm an English teacher in France and also the founder of Lydia's Book Club, a book club for learners of English and non-native English speakers who want to maintain their level. In this book club, I host live readings and live discussion workshops on adaptations of classics of literature and contemporary novels in their original text. I also tend to prioritize books that are written by women. Each month, we read and explore a different book for all levels of English. For the next 2 months, we're going to read the original text of It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover, published in 2022. For this book, you need a strong B2 or upper intermediate level or a C1 advanced level in English. With the members of the book club, we've decided to read this book because our last read was It Ends With Us. So at the moment, we're reading quite advanced books. Well, books for advanced speakers of English. But if you have a lower level, then I encourage you to go to Lydia's Book Club, to the Lydia's Book Club store, workshop store, where you will see that we've read books with a lower level, so adaptations of classics of English literature. Or on this YouTube channel, you can find the live readings of these books for free. So this book, It Starts With Us, is the sequel book of It Ends With Us. And this is why we decided with the book club members that we would read this one, because it just made sense to read that book afterwards. And as we enjoyed so much It Ends With Us, it just felt natural to read, and I couldn't wait to read It Starts With Us as well, whether if it was with the book club or on my own. I wanted to see what Colleen Hoover had in mind with the follow-up of the stories with between Atlas and Lily. They're a beautiful story. So if you don't know anything about this book or Colleen Hoover, I invite you to listen to the podcast episode 30, which is available on this YouTube channel and also on Spotify. Today it is session 6, and we are going to read chapter 12. If you would like to attend this live reading with me on Zoom, you just need to subscribe to the newsletter, and you will get the free link, and then join me. I highly recommend you to join us live, because it will be the best way for you to ask any questions that you might have about the book club, and also a chance to improve your reading and comprehension skills, because at the end of this live session, which is not recorded and available for you to see live, to see here on YouTube, is that I stop the recording and then I have a little chat with the people present during this reading. And we have a lovely chat just after the reading of the chapters. And it's always nice to get new people on board as well. Also, on Saturday, the 29th of March, I will host the first live discussion workshop about this book. We will talk about chapter 1 to 14. And this live discussion is only accessible for the members of the book club. So you need to join the book club to be able to be part of the discussion. It is a private discussion on Zoom that I do not post on YouTube. So you just need to become a member. You've got the link in the description, or you just go to lydiasbookclub.com And I strongly recommend you to join the live discussion as well, because this is how this is where you will improve your speaking skills and your fluency in English, but also develop your critical thinking skills. But it's also a fantastic way to meet with the other members of the book club and to see. So if you any curious to see who else is in the book club, then or to see how it works, then just have a go. Just have a go. And last thing, I'm pleased to announce that now you can purchase the live workshop of It Ends With Us. So this book, our January and February read, you don't need to become a member for that. You just choose any workshop that you want. This one is available now, but you have loads of other live workshops live discussion workshop that we've done in the last year. So lots of choices of levels of books. So you just choose the workshop that you want to buy, and then you will be asked to create your login, because this way you'll get a private access to the videos, and so have the chance to enjoy the videos at your own pace and read the book at your own pace as well. So this is an alternative to becoming a full member of the book club. So here's some light. So let's get started. I'm going to start with a quick recap of the chapters that we read last Saturday. Yeah. So on Saturday, we read chapters 10 and 11. In chapter 10, this was a short chapter. We learned that Lily is about to go on a date with Atlas, and she leaves her daughter, Emmy, to Elissa, her wonderful friend, Elissa, who smelled that Lily was hiding something, or that she hadn't tell her everything. So she figured that she was well dressed and stuff, and she figured that she had a date with someone, and more specifically with the Greek god, because they had an inside joke between the two, as they called Atlas, a Greek god. Well, Elisa called Atlas a Greek god when she saw him coming in the shop when, if you remember, Atlas brought Lily lunch, and Elisa got stoked by the look at Atlas, and she called him a Greek god. So, which means that everything basically, and meaning that he's very handsome. So Emmy stays at Elisa, and she's a friend. Well, she's a baby, but Riley, Elisa's daughter, enjoys playing with her, so they're very close in age. Of course, as Lily got pregnant quite soon after Elisa gave birth, so it's quite convenient. So Lily leaves her daughter to Elisa, and chapter 11 It's Atlas's side where in which we can see we can learn about his own perception of the date. So when he arrives to pick her up at the shop, he's very very how to say, mesmerized. I would say he's mesmerized by Lily's appearance, and her he's in awe of her, basically, because she looks stunning, and he he's under her spell, basically. So which shows that she's still he's still very much in love with her, and she still has a lot of effect on him. So they had planned to go to this new restaurant because Atlas didn't want to take her in one of his restaurants, obviously. So they were about to go to that new restaurant, but I don't know, at some point Atlas had to answer a call about there was an emergency to to sort out um, at one of his restaurants. And while he was on the phone, Lily fell asleep. So when he hung up the phone, Lily was sleeping. So he was so nice. He didn't want to wake her up. So he just stayed in a car. So they had parked the car, and he just uh, read because so Lily had brought her journal, one of her journals, because she had started reading an entry from one of her journals on the phone while they were FaceTiming, and Atlas to wants to read more about her book, her entries, and he's curious to know what she wrote about him and about their relationship when they were young. So he asked her so she brought one of her journals at the date. So while she was asleep in the car, Atlas took the opportunity to read one of her entries in that journal, and he reads the moment where they have their first kiss. They were in Lily's bed, and it's actually the same passage that you can find in It Ends With Us in the first book. We were actually last live session we uh, we were actually wondering if it was the same text, and I checked. It was actually the same text. So he reads that while she sleeps, and he's so impressed how detailed she wrote, how detailed she recalled how much detail she gave him in what she wrote in her book about their first kiss, and how precise she is when she recalls the event, and he's not even sure whether he's wondering whether it really happened like that, and he feels almost like his teenage self handled their relationship better than he does now. He feels a little bit like he has a sort of a complex of inferiority with his younger self, which is quite interesting um, to see to see that sometimes when we look at ourselves, we look at our younger self on pictures or on videos, um, old video, um, old videos, how we distance ourselves from the person that we look at, and we don't realize that we feel that it's not us. This is not we're not the same person anymore. This is quite a strange feeling actually when we look at old photos and or videos of ourselves, and we can't believe that we wore that or we did this and that because we're so far from that person anymore. Feels like it's another person, that's someone that we don't know. It's strange. Anyway, so that's an interesting intake and feeling that's very relatable, definitely. So, well, that I find very relatable for sure. And then uh, Lily finally wakes up and she feels so embarrassed about the fact that she slept through. And Atlas is so chill, basically. Um, and he doesn't really care that she fell asleep. He's so considerate again. And he knows that she is a working mom. She has a lot on her plate, and he's very understanding, which is uh, unusual, I guess, to read as a to find in as a character trait in a novel or a man specifically. To see that side of a male character. So something to be inspired by. So let's start with the reading of chapter 12. So it's probably I guess a long chapter because I only selected this chapter for today. So let's go. It's Lily's as a narrator. I can't believe you let me sleep for that long. It's been 10 minutes and my stomach is still rolling from embarrassment. Oh, it's only 10 minutes. I thought it was more than it was. I thought she had slept for like 20 minutes, but no. Okay. It's been 10 minutes and my stomach is still rolling from embarrassment. Did you finish reading the whole journal? I stopped after you read about our I stopped after I read about our first kiss. That's good. That's not too embarrassing. But if he would have read about the first time we had sex while I was sleeping in the seat next to him, I'm not sure could have recovered. I could have recovered. This is not fair, I muter. You have to do something mortifying so the scales even out. Because right now I feel like I've completely ruined our night. Atlas laughs. You think me doing something to mortify myself will make you feel better about tonight? I nod. Yes, that's the law of the universe. Eye for an eye. Humiliation for humiliation. Atlas taps his thumb in his steering wheel as he massages his jaw with his free hand. Then he nudges its head toward his phone, which is sitting on the cup holder. Open the notes app on my phone. Read the first one. Oh, wow. I was kidding, but I snatch up his phone so fast. What's your password? 9595. I enter the numbers and then glance over his home screen while I have it open. Every app is stuffed neatly into a folder. It has 0 unread text and 1 unread email. You're a neat freak. Who has 1 unread email? I don't like clutter, he says. Side effect of the military. How many unread emails do you have? Thousands. I open the Notes app and click on the most recent one. As soon as I see the 2 words at the top, I drop the phone. Pressing it face down on my thigh. Atlas. Lily. I can feel my embarrassment being swallowed up by a warm wave of anticipation falling over me. You wrote me a Dear Lily letter? He nods slowly. You were asleep for quite a while. When he glances at me, his smile falters like he's worried about whatever it is he wrote. He faces forward again, and I can see the roar of his throat. I lean my head against the passenger window and begin to read silently. It's strange. Anyway. Dear Lily, you're going to be mortified when you wake up and realize you fell asleep on our first date. I'm a little too excited for your reaction, but you seemed so tired when I picked you up. It actually makes me happy to see you getting some rest. This past week has been surreal, hasn't it? I was beginning to think I may never be a part of your life in any significant way. And then, poof, you show up. I could go on and on about what that run-in meant to me, but I promised my therapist I'd stop saying cheesy shit to you. Don't worry, I plan on breaking that promise many times, but you asked if we could take things slow, so I'll give it a few more dates. Instead, I think I'm going to steal a page from your playbook and talk about our past. It's only fair. You let me read some of your most intimate thoughts at such a vulnerable point in your life. I figure it's the least I can do to give you some insight into my life at that time. My version is a little grittier, though. I'll try to spare you the worst of the details, but I'm not sure I can fully know what your friendship meant to me without knowing I went through before you came along. I told you some of it, about how I ended up in the position I was in, living in that abandoned house, but I had felt homeless a lot longer than that. My whole life, really. Even though I had a house and a mother and occasionally a stepfather. I don't remember what things were like when I was young. I was this fantasy that I have this fantasy that maybe she was a good mother once upon a time. I do remember a day trip we took to Cape Cod where we tried coconut shrimp for the first time. But if she was a decent mother outside of that one day, that one meal, that part of her never became a core memory for me. My core memories were stretches of time spent alone, or just trying to stay out of her way. She was quick to anger and quick to respond. For the first 10 or so years of my life, she was stronger and faster than me. So I spent the better part of a decade hiding from her hand, from her cigarettes, from the lash of her tongue. I know she was stressed. She was a single mother working nights to try and provide for me. But as many excuses as I made for her back then, I've seen my fair share of single mothers navigate life just fine. I've seen my fair share of single mothers navigate life just fine the without resorting to the things my mother did. You've seen my scars. I won't go into the details, but as a oh sorry, but as bad as it was, it got even worse when she was on her third marriage. I was 12 when they met. Little did I know the age of 12 would be my only peaceful year. She was always gone because she was with him. And when she was home, she was actually in a distant mood because she was falling in love. Funny how love for a partner can make or break how some people treat their own children. But 12 turned into 13, turned into Tim moving in with us, and the next 4 years of my life were hell on earth. When I wasn't making my mother angry, I was making Tim angry. When I was home, I was being yelled at. When I was at school, the house was being destroyed by their fights, and I'd be expected to clean up after them when I got home. Life with them was a nightmare. And by the time I was finally strong enough to take up for myself, that's when Tim decided he didn't want to live with me anymore. My mother chose him. I was forced to live. They didn't have to ask twice. I was more than ready to go, but that's because I had somewhere to go. Until I didn't. I was gone 3 months before the friend I was staying with moved with his family to Colorado. At that point, I had no one and nowhere else to go, and no money to get there if I did. So I was forced to go back to my mother and ask if I could come back home. I still remember the day I showed back up. The day I showed, sorry. I still remember the day I showed back up to that house. I had barely been gone 3 months and the place was already falling apart. The yard hadn't been moved. The yard hadn't been mowed since the last time I'd done it before being kicked out. All the window screens were missing, and there was a gaping hole where the doorknob used to be. By the looks of the place, you would think they'd been gone for years. My mother's car was in the driveway, but Tim's wasn't. It looked like her car had been there for a while. The hood was propped open. The hood was propped open, and there were tools scattered near it, along with at least 30 beer cans someone had shaped along with at least 30 beer cans someone had shaped in the form okay, someone had shaped in the form of a pyramid against the garage door. So there were the beer cans put up as a pyramid together against the wall of against the garage door. Okay, sounds interesting. Even the newspapers had piled up on the cracked concrete walkway. I remember picking them up and setting them on one of the old iron chairs to try out before I knocked on the door. It felt weird knocking on the door of a house I had lived in for years. But on the off chance Tim was home, I wasn't about to open the door without permission. I had a house key still, but Tim had made it very clear that he'd turn me in for trespassing if I ever tried to use it. I couldn't have used it even if I wanted to. There was no doorknob. I could hear someone making their way across the living room. The curtain and the small window at the top half of the front door moved, and I saw my mother peek outside. She stared for a few seconds, unmoving. She eventually opened the door a few inches, far enough that I could see that at 2:00 in the afternoon she was still in her pajamas, which were an oversized wizard t-shirt one of her exes had left behind. I hated that shirt because I liked that band. Every time she wore it, she ruined them a little more for me. She asked what I was doing there, and I didn't immediately want to give her my reasons. Instead, I asked her if Tim was home. She opened the door a bit more and folded her arms so tightly together it made one of the band members on her shirt look decapitated. She told me Tim was at work and asked what I wanted. I asked her if I could come inside. She contemplated my question and then looked over my shoulder, her eyes scanning the street. I don't know what she was checking for. Maybe she was afraid a neighbor would witness her allowing her own son to visit. She left the door open for me while she went to her bedroom to change. The house was eerily dark, I remember. All the curtains were drawn, creating a sense of confusion on what time of day it was. It didn't help that the clock on the stove was blinking, and the time was off by over 8 hours. If I still lived there, that's something else I would have fixed. If I still lived there, the curtain would have been open, the kitchen counter wouldn't have been covered with dirty dishes, there wouldn't have been a missing doorknob or an unkempt yard, or days' worth of soggy newspaper piling up. I realized in that moment that I was the one who had been keeping that house together all the years I was growing up. It gave me hope that maybe they realized I was an asset rather than an inconvenience, and they would allow me to return home until I finished high school. I saw a doorknob kit on the kitchen table, so I picked it up and inspected it. The receipt was beneath it. I looked at the date on the receipt, and it was purchased over 2 weeks prior. So they had bought the doorknob. So the doorknob is this little thing that you can see on my door. That's the doorknob. And they bought it 2 weeks ago, and they still hadn't put it on the front door. So you basically can come in and go from that house, just like that. So I picked it up and inspected it. The receipt was beneath it. I looked at the date on the receipt, and it was purchased over 2 weeks prior. The doorknob with the right fit for the front door. I didn't know why Tim hadn't installed it. If he had, if it had had, if it had, if it had it for 2 weeks. So I found the tools in the kitchen drawer and opened the package. It was several minutes before my mother came out of her room. But by the time she did, I already had the new doorknob in place on the front door. She asked what I was doing, so I twisted the knob and opened the door a little to show her it worked. I'll never forget her reaction. She sighed and said, "Why do you do shit like this? It's like you want him to hate you." She snatched the screwdriver out of my hand and said, "Maybe you should go before he realized you were here." Part of the reason I could never get along with anyone in that house was because their reaction, their reactions was their reactions always seemed misplaced. When I would help out around the house without being asked, Tim would say it was because I was antagonizing him. When I wouldn't help with something, he'd say it was because I was lazy and ungrateful. "I'm not trying to upset Tim," I said. "I fixed your doorknob. I was just trying to help." He was going to do it as soon as he had the time. Part of Tim's problem was that he always had the time. He never kept a job more than 6 months and spent more time gambling than he did with my mother. "Did he get a job?" I remember asking her. "He's looking." "Is that where he is right now?" I could see in her expression that Tim wasn't out job hunting. Wherever he was sure it was putting wherever he was, I was sure it was putting my mother even more in debt than she already was. Her debt was probably the straw that broke the camel's back and got me kicked out in the first place. And I found a stash of maxed out, past due credit card bills in her name. I confronted Tim about them. He didn't like being confronted. He preferred the preteen version of me he met, the preteen, so pre-teenager, the preteen version of me he met the near adult I grew into. He liked the version of me he could push around without being pushed back. The version of me he could manipulate without me calling him out. That version of me left between the ages of 15 and 16. Once Tim realized he couldn't threaten me physically anymore, he tried ruining my life in other ways. One of those ways was leaving me without a place to live. I eventually swallowed my pride and came right out with it. I told my mother I had nowhere to go. My mother's expression wasn't just void of empathy, it was full of annoyance. "I hope you aren't asking to move back in after everything you did." "Everything I did? You mean when I called him out because his gambling addiction put you in debt?" That's when she called me an asshole. Or asshole. Or asshole, rather. She always said that word wrong. I tended to plead with her, but she quickly resorted to the person I was used to. She hurled the screwdriver at me. It was so sudden and unexpected because we weren't even arguing at that point, so I wasn't able to duck in time. It hit me right above my left eye, in the center of my eyebrow. I rubbed my fingers across the cut, and they came away smeared with blood. All I did was ask to move home. I didn't disrespect her. I didn't curse at her. I simply showed up and fixed her front door and tried to reason with her, and I ended up with a bloody gash. And she hurt him with the screwdriver. I remember staring at my fingers, thinking, Tim didn't do this. My mother did this. For so long, I had blamed Tim for everything that went wrong in that household. But everything wrong with that household started with her. Tim simply amplified what was already an awful environment. I remember thinking I would rather be dead than back with her. Up until that moment, there was a part of me that still held something for her. I don't know if it was a silver of respect, but I was somehow able to appreciate that she had kept me alive when I was younger. But isn't that the most basic thing a parent should do when they decide to bring a child into the world? I realized that I realized at that point I had been giving her too much credit. I always blamed our lack. I always blamed our lack of a bond on her being a single mother. But there were a lot of busy single mothers out there who somehow still bonded with their children, mothers who took up for their children when they were being mistreated, mothers who wouldn't look the other way when their 13-year-old came away from a punishment with a black eye and a busted lip, mothers who didn't allow her husbands to force their school-aged child into homelessness, mothers who didn't throw screwdrivers at their children's head. Despite realizing what an uncaring human she truly was, I made one last attempt to pull humanity out of her. Can I at least get some of my stuff before I leave? You don't have anything, she said. We needed the space. I couldn't look at her after that. It was as if she wanted nothing more than to erase me from her life. So I vowed in that moment to help her to do just that. To help her do just that. The blood was dripping to my eye when I was walking away from the house. I can't tell you what the rest of that day was like. To feel so incredibly unwanted, unloved, alone. I had no one, nothing, no money, no belongings, no family, just a wound. We're impressionable when we are younger, and when you're told you are nothing for years on end by everyone you should mean something too. You start to believe it, and you slowly start to become nothing. But then I met you, Lily, and even though I was nothing, when you looked at me, you somehow saw something. Something I couldn't see. You were the first person in my life to show an interest in who I was as a human. No one had ever asked me questions about myself the way you did. After those few months I spent getting to know you, I stopped feeling like I was nothing. You made me feel interesting and unique. Your friendship gave me worth. Thank you for that. Even if this date leads nowhere and we never speak again, I will always be grateful to you for somehow seeing something in me that my own mother was blind to. You're my favorite person, Lily. And now you know why, at last. My throat is so thick with burgeoning tears, I can't even verbally respond to what I just read. I set the phone on my leg and wipe at my eyes. I hate that he's driving right now because if we were apart, I'd throw my arms around him and hug him tighter than he has ever been hugged. I'd probably kiss him too and pull him into the back seat because no one has ever said such heartbreakingly sad things in such a sweet way to me before. Atlas reaches across the seat and grabs his phone. He drops it back into the cup holder, but then he reaches for my hand. He threads his finger through mine and squeezes my hand while staring straight ahead. That move causes a commotion in my chest. I wrap my other hand over the top of his and holding hands like this reminds me of all the bus rides when we just sit in silence, sad and cold, holding on to each other. I stare out the window, and he stares straight ahead. And neither of us says a word on our drive back to the city. We stop and grab two go burgers just 2 miles from my flower shop. Atlas knows I don't want Emerson to be up too far past her bedtime, so we eat in the parking lot of Lily Bloom's. Our conversation since getting back into the city and ordering burgers has been much lighter. It isn't lost on me that I'm not mortified anymore. Him being vulnerable with me seemed to be the reset button I needed for our date to get back on track. We've been discussing all the places we've traveled. He has me beat by a long shot, considering the time he spent in the Marines. He's been to 5 different continents, and the only place I've been outside of the country is Canada. You've never even been to Mexico? Atlas asks. I wipe my mouth with a napkin. Never. Did you and Ryle not have a honeymoon? I hate the sound of his name in the middle of this date. Nope. We eloped in Vegas, didn't have time for a honeymoon. Atlas takes a sip of his drink. When he looks at me, his eyes are piercing, like he's hoping to unpack the thoughts I'm not saying. Did you want a wedding? I shrug. I don't know. I knew Ryan never wanted to get married, so when he said we should go to Vegas and get married, I saw it as a window of opportunity that might close. I guess I felt like eloping was better than not marrying him at all. What if you get married again? You think you'll do it differently? I laugh at that question and nod immediately. Absolutely. I want it all. Flowers and bridesmaids and shit. I pop a fry into my mouth. And romantic vows. And an even more romantic honeymoon. Where would you go? Paris, Rome, London. I have no desire to sit on a hot beach somewhere. I want to see all the romantic places in Europe and make love in every city and take pictures kissing in front of the Eiffel Tower. I want to eat croissants and hold hands on trains. I drop my empty container of fries into the sack. What about you? Atlas reaches for my free hand and he holds it. It doesn't answer me. He just smiles at me and squeezes my hand, like what he wants is a secret that's too soon to spill. Holding his hand feels like such a natural thing, maybe because we used to do this so much as teenagers, but sitting in this car with him and not holding his hand feels more out of place than holding hands does. Even with the hitch I put into our date by falling asleep, the entire night has felt easy and comfortable. Being near him is second nature. I trace a finger over the top of his wrist. I need to go. I know, he says, rubbing his thumb over mine. Atlas's phone pings. So he reaches for it with his free hand and reads the incoming text. He sighs quietly, and the way he drops his phone back into the cup holder makes me think he's irritated with whoever just texted him. Everything okay? Atlas forces a smile, but it's a pathetic attempt. I see right through it, and he knows it. He breaks eye contact and looks down at our hands. He flips mine over until it's face up, and he begins to trace the lines in my palm. His finger feels like a lightning rod, zapping electricity from my hand throughout the rest of my body. My mother called me last week. That confession takes me back. What did she want? I don't know. I ended the call before she could tell me, but I'm pretty sure she needs money. I thread our hands together again. I don't know what to say to him. That has to be hard. Not hearing from your mother for almost 15 years, and then she finally reaches out when she needs something. It makes me so grateful that my mother is a huge part of my life. I didn't mean to drop that on you when you're in a hurry. We should save some conversation for our second date. He smiles at me, and it instantly flips the mood. It's remarkable how his smile can dictate the feelings occurring inside my own chest. Come on, I'll walk you to your car. I laugh because my car is literally 2 feet away. But Atlas rushes around the front of his car and opens my door, then helps me out. And then, with one step each, we are at my car. Fun walk, I tease. He flashes a brief smile, and I don't know means if he means for it to be seductive, but I'm suddenly warm all over. Despite the cold weather, Atlas peeks over my shoulder, nudging his head toward my car. Do you have more journals in there? Just had the one on me. Shame, he says. He leans a shoulder against my car, though I do the same facing him. I have no idea if we're about to kiss. I wouldn't object, but I also just ate onions after sleeping for over an hour, so I doubt my mouth is at its most appealing right now. Do I get a redo? I ask. A redo of what? This date. I'd like to be awake for the next one. Oops, sorry. Atlas laughs, but then his laugh dissipates. He stares at me for a beat. I forgot how fun it is being around you. His words confuse me because fun is not what I would call our time together back then. It was sad at best. You think those times were fun? He lifts a shoulder in a half shrug. I mean, it was the lowest point of my life, sure, but my memories with you from back then are still some of my favorites. His compliment makes me blush. I'm glad it's dark. But he's right. It was a low point in both of our lives, but being with him was still somehow the highlight of my teenage years. I guess fun is the perfect way to describe what we made of it. And if we somehow had fun together at such a low point in both of our lives, it makes me wonder what we could be like at our highest. It's the exact opposite of the thoughts I had about Rye last week. I've experienced the lowest of lows with Atlas, and he has never been anything but incredible and respectful to me. Yet, the man I chose to be my husband somehow disrespected me in ways no one deserves, all while we were at such a high point in our lives. I'm grateful for Atlas because I know he's the standard I now hold people to. He's the standard I should have held Ryle to from the very beginning. There's a convenient gust of cold air that sweeps between us. It would be the perfect excuse for Atlas to pull me to him, but he doesn't. Instead, the quietness builds between us until there's only one thing left to do. Either kiss or say goodbye. Atlas brushes a strand of my hair from my forehead. I'm not going to kiss you yet. I hope my disappointment isn't obvious, but I know it is. I practically deflate in front of him. Is it my punishment is it my punishment is it my punishment for falling asleep? Of course not. I'm just feeling inferior after reading about our first kiss. I spewed a laughter. Inferior to who? Yourself? He nods. Teenage Atlas through your eyes was quite the charmer. So is adult Atlas. He groans a little, like he already wants to change his mind about the kiss. The groan makes things feel a little more serious. He moves fluidly away from the car until he is standing right in front of me. I press my back against my car door and look up at him, hoping he's about to kiss the hell out of me. Also, you asked me to take things slow, so... Damn it, I did do that. I said very slow, if I remember correctly. I hate myself. Atlas leans forward and I close my eyes. I feel his breath scattering across my cheek right before he presses a quick kiss against the side of my head. Good night, Lily. Okay. Okay? Why did I say okay? So flustered. Atlas laughs softly. When I open my eyes, he's backing away from me, heading to the driver's side of his car. Before he leaves, he rests his arm on the roof of the car and says, I hope you get some sleep tonight. I nod. But I don't know if that's going to be possible. I feel like every bit of caffeine I've consumed today has just kicked in all at once. I won't be able to sleep after this date. I'm going to be thinking about the letter he let me read. And when I'm not thinking about that, I'm going to be replaying our first kiss in my head all night long, wondering what part 2 is going to feel like. Just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. The familiar sound of Finding Nemo are coming from Elisa and Marshall's living room when I open the door to their apartment. When I pass by the kitchen, Marshall is standing in front of the refrigerator with both doors wide open. Then he nods, a greeting, and I wave. But I don't make small talk with him because I'm aching to hug Emerson. When I enter the living room, I'm shocked to find Ryle on the sofa. Oh, he's there. He didn't mention he would be off work tonight. Emerson is asleep on his chest, and Elisa is nowhere around. Hey, Ryle doesn't look up to greet me, but he doesn't have to look up for me to know something is bothering him. I can see the firm set in his jaw, a dead giveaway that he's angry. I want to pick up Emerson, but she looks peaceful, so I leave her on Ryle's chest. How long has she been asleep? Ryle is still staring at the television, one of his hands protectively on his back, the other behind his head. Since the movie started, I recognize the scene, which lets me know it's been about an hour. Elisa finally walks into the room, breathing life into it. Hey, Lily, I'm sorry she's asleep. We tried so hard to keep her awake. We give each other a 2-second glance. She silently apologizes that Ryle is there. I silently tell her it's okay. They're siblings. I can't expect him not to show up when he knows she's babysitting his daughter. Ryan motions for Alyssa. Can you put Emerson on her pallet? I need to talk to Lily. The curtness in his voice alarms both me and Elisa. We give each other another look as she pries Emerson off Ryle's chest. The ache to hold her only grows wider as Elisa lays her on the pallet. Ryle stands up, and for the first time since I walked in, he makes eye contact with me. He gives me a once over, noticing the outfit and the heels I'm wearing. I can see the slow roll of his throat. He nudges his head upward, indicating he wants to speak to me on the rooftop balcony. Whatever conversation this is, he wants complete privacy. He exits the apartment to head to the roof, and I look toward Elisa for guidance. Once Riley is out of earshot, she says, I told him you had an event tonight. Thanks. Elisa swore she wouldn't tell Riley about my date. But I can't figure out why he's so angry if he doesn't know where I've been. Why is he upset? Elisa shrugs. No idea. He seemed fine when he showed up an hour ago. I know better than anyone how Rye can seem fine 1 second and absolutely the opposite of fine the next. But I usually know what's setting him off. Did he find out I went on a date? Did he find out it was with Atlas? Once I'm on the roof, I locate Ryle leaning over the ledge, looking down. My stomach is already in knots. My heels click against the floor as I make my way over to him. Ryle glances at me briefly. You look nice, he says. He says it in a way that makes it seem like an insult rather than a compliment. Or maybe it's just my guilt. Thank you. I lean against the ledge, waiting for him to speak up about whatever is bothering him. Did you just get back from a date? I had an event. I go along with Elisa's lie. There is no point in being honest with him because it's too soon to know if this thing with Atlas is going anywhere yet. And the truth would only upset Ryan more. I press my back against the ledge and fold my arms over my chest. What is it, Ryan? He waits a beat before he finally speaks. I've never seen that cartoon before tonight. Is he just trying to make small talk, or is he angry about something? I'm confused by this whole conversation until I'm not. I swear, I can be such an idiot sometimes. Of course, he's upset. He once read all my journal entries. He knows how much that movie means to me after having read everything I wrote about it. But I guess now that he's finally seen it, he's connected the dots. And by the looks of it, he's added some dots of his own. He turns now, facing me with an expression full of betrayal. You named our daughter Dory? He takes a step closer. You chose my daughter's middle name because of your connection with that man? I feel an immediate pulsing in my temples. That man? I break eye contact with him while I think of how to properly communicate this. When I choose the name Dory as Emerson's middle name, I didn't do it for Atlas. That movie meant something to me long before Atlas came into the picture, but I probably should have thought twice about it before going through with naming her that. I clear my throat, making room for the truth. I chose that name because the character inspired me when I was younger. It had nothing to do with anyone else. Ryan releases an exasperation, disappointed laugh. You're a real piece of work, Lily. I want to argue with him, to further prove my point, but I'm getting nervous. His demeanor is bringing back every fear of him I've ever held. I tried to diffuse the situation by escaping it. I'm going home now. I start to head toward the stairs, but he's faster than me. He moves past me, and then he is in between me and the door to the stairwell. I take a nervous step back. I slip my hand in my pocket in search of my phone in case I need to use it. We're changing her middle name, he says. I keep my voice firm and steady when I respond. We named her Emerson after your brother. That's your connection to her name. Her middle name is my connection. It's only fair. You're reading too much into it. I try to sidestep around him, but he moves with me. I glance over my shoulder to measure the distance between myself and the ledge. Not that I feel like he'd throw me over it, but I also didn't think he'd be capable of shoving me down a flight of stairs. Does he know? Ryan asks. He doesn't have to say Atlas's name for me to know exactly who he's talking about. I feel the guilt swallowing me, and I'm worried Ryle can sense it. Atlas does know Emerson's middle name is Dory because I made it a point to tell him. But I honestly didn't name my daughter for Atlas. I named her for me. Dory was my favorite character because I even knew Atlas Corrigan before I even knew Atlas Corrigan existed. I admire her strength, and I only named her that because strength is the one trait I hope my daughter has more than anything else. But Ryan's reaction is making me want to apologize because finding Nemo does mean something to both Atlas and me. And I knew it when I ran after Atlas on the street to tell him about her middle name. Maybe Ryan deserves to be angry. Therein lies our issue, though. Ryle can be angry, but that doesn't mean I deserve everything that accompanies his anger. I'm falling back into that same trap of forgetting that nothing I could do would warrant his extreme past reactions. I may not be perfect, but I don't deserve to fear for my life after every time I make a mistake. And this may have been a mistake that deserves more discussion, but I don't feel comfortable having a conversation about it with Ryan on a rooftop without witnesses. You're making me nervous. Can we please go back downstairs? Ryan's entire demeanor changes as soon as I say that. It's like he punctures against the sharp insult. Lily, come on. He moves away from the door and walks all the way to the other side of the balcony. We're arguing. People argue. Christ! He spins away from me, giving me his back now. Here comes the gaslighting. He's attempting to make me feel crazy for being scared. Even though my fear is more than warranted, I stare at him for a moment, wondering if the argument is over or if he has more to say. I want it to be over, so I open the door to the stairwell. Lily, wait! I pause because his voice is much calmer, which leads me to believe he might be capable of a verbal disagreement rather than an explosive fight tonight. He walks back over to me with a pained expression. I'm sorry. You know how I feel about anything related to him. I do know, which is precisely why I've had such conflicting feelings about Atlas potentially being a part of my life again. The simple idea of having to confront Ryle with that information makes me want to vomit, especially now. It upsets me to find out that our daughter's middle name might have been something you chose to deliberately hurt me. You can't expect something like that not to affect me. Here again, the victim. I lean against the wall and fold my arms over my chest. It had nothing to do with you or Atlas, and everything to do with me, I swear. Just mentioning Atlas's name out loud seems to get it stuck in the air between us, like it's a tangible thing Ryan can't reach out and punch. Ryan nods once with a tight expression, but it appears that he accepts that answer. I honestly don't know if he should. Maybe I did do it subconsciously to hurt him. I don't even know at that point. His anger is making me question my intentions. This all feels so grossly familiar. We're both quiet for a while. I just want to go to Emerson. But Ryle seems to have more to say because he moves closer, placing a hand on the wall beside my head. I'm relieved that he doesn't look angry anymore, but I'm not sure I like the look in his eye that has replaced the anger. It's not the first time he's looked at me this way since our separation. I feel my entire body stiffen as his gradual change in demeanor. He moves a couple of inches closer, too close, and dips his head. Lily, he says, his voice a scratchy whisper. What are we doing? I don't respond to him because I'm not sure why he's asking that. We're having a conversation. One he started. He lifts a hand, fingering the collar of my jumpsuit, which is peeking out beneath my coat. When he sighs, his breath moves through my hair. Everything would be so much easier if we could just... Ryan pauses, maybe to think about the words he's about to say, the words I don't want to hear. Stop, I whisper, preventing him from finishing. He doesn't complete his thought, but he also doesn't back away. If anything, it feels like he moves even closer. I've done nothing in the past that would make him think it's okay to move in on me like this. I do nothing that gives him hope for us other than foster a civil co-parenting relationship. He's the one always trying to push my boundaries and straddle the line of what I'm okay with. And I'm honestly tired of it. Sorry. What if I've changed? He asked. Really changed. His eyes are full of mixture of sincerity and sorrow. It does nothing for me. Absolutely nothing. I don't care if you changed, Ryle. I hope you have, but it's not my responsibility to test that theory. Those words hit him hard. I see it when he has to take a moment to swallow whatever unkind response he knows he shouldn't have given me right now. He stops talking, stops looking at me, stops hovering. He huffs, frustrated, and then backs away and makes his way toward the stairs, hopefully to his own apartment. He slams the door shut behind him. I don't immediately follow for obvious reasons. I need space. I need to process. This isn't the first time he's asked me that what we're doing. Like our divorce is some long game I'm playing. Sometimes he'll say it in passing, sometime in a text. Sometimes he makes it as a joke. But every time he suggests how senseless our divorce is, I recognize it for what it is, a manipulation tactic. He thinks if he treats our divorce like we're being silly, I'll eventually agree with him and take him back. His life would be easier if I took him back. Elisa's and Marshall's lives might even be made easier by it, because they wouldn't have to dance around our divorce and their relationship with him. But my life wouldn't be easier. There is nothing easy about fearing for your safety anytime you make a misstep. Emerson's life wouldn't be easier. I've lived her life. There is nothing easy about living in that kind of household. I wait for my anger to dissipate before heading back downstairs. But it doesn't. It just builds and builds with every step I descend. I feel like the reaction I'm having is too big for what just happened. Or maybe that's just how I've conditioned myself to feel when I'm around Ryle. Maybe it's a combination of that and my lack of sleep. Maybe it's the date with Atlas that I almost ruined. Whatever it is that's making me react so intensely catches up with me right outside of Elisa's apartment door. I need a moment to collect my emotions before being near my daughter. So I sit on the floor of the hallway to cry it out. I like to shed tears in private. Happens quite regularly, unfortunately. But I've been finding myself getting overwhelmed a lot. Divorce is overwhelming. Being a single mother is overwhelming. Running a business is overwhelming. Dealing with an ex-husband who still scares you is overwhelming. And then there is that splinter of fear that creeps into my conscience when Ryle says something to suggest our divorce was a mistake. Because sometimes I do wonder if my life wouldn't be so overwhelming if I still had a husband who shared some of the burden of raising his child. And sometimes I wonder if I'm overreacting by not allowing my daughter to have overnights with her own father. Relationships and custody agreements don't come with a blueprint, unfortunately. I don't know if every move I make is the right one, but I'm doing my best. I don't need his manipulation and gaslighting on top of that. Bear with me, this is a long chapter. Yes, yeah. One more. One more page. Right. I wish I were at home. I would walk straight to my jewelry box and pull out the list of reminders. I should take a picture of it so I always have it in my phone in the future. I definitely underestimate how difficult and confusing interactions with Raya can be. How do people leave these cycles when they don't have the resources I had or the support from their friends and family? How do they possibly stay strong enough every second of the day? I feel like all it takes is one weak, insecure moment in the presence of your ex to convince yourself you made the wrong decision. Anyone who has ever left a manipulative, abusive spouse or somehow stayed that course deserves a medal, a statue, a freaking superhero movie. Society has obviously been worshipping the wrong heroes this whole time because I'm convinced it takes less strength to pick up a building than it does to permanently leave an abusive situation. I'm still crying a few minutes later when I hear Liz's door open. I look up to find Marshall exiting the apartment carrying 2 bags of trash. He pauses when he sees me sitting on the floor. Oh, his eyes dart around as if he's hoping someone else will help me. Not that I need help, I just needed a moment of respite. Marshall sets the bags on the floor and walks over. He takes a seat across from me and stretches out his legs. He scratches uncomfortably at his knee I'm not sure what to say. I'm not good at this. Discomfort makes me laugh through my tears. I toss up a frustrated hand. I'm fine. I just needed to cry sometimes. I just need to cry sometimes when Ryan and I fight. Marshall pulls up a leg like he's about to stand up and go after Ryan. Did he hurt you? No, no. It was fairly calm. Marshall relaxes back to the floor, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because he's the unlucky one in front of me right now, but I unload all my thoughts on him. I think that's the problem. That he actually had a right to be mad at me this time. He was relatively calm about it. Sometimes we can argue and it doesn't lead to anything more than a disagreement. And when that happens, I start to question whether I overreacted by asking for a divorce. I mean, I know I didn't overreact. I know I didn't. But he has this way of planting seeds of doubt in me. Like maybe things could have gotten better if I just gave him more time to work on himself. I feel bad that I'm laying all this on Marshall. It's not fair to him because Riley's his best friend. I'm sorry, this isn't your issue. Elisa cheated on me. Ooh. Marshall's words turn me silent for a good 5 seconds. What? It was a long time ago. We worked through it. But damn it, it hurt like hell. She broke my heart. I'm shaking my head in an attempt to process this information. He keeps talking through. He keeps talking though. So I try to keep up. We weren't in a good place. We were going to different colleges and trying to make long distance work, and we were young, and it wasn't even anything big. She had a drunk make-out with some guy at a party before she remembered how amazing I am. But when she told me, I've never been so angry in my life. Nothing had better cut me like that did. I wanted to retaliate. I wanted to cheat on her so she'd know how it felt. I wanted to slash her tires and max out her credit card and burn all her clothes. But no matter how mad I was when she was standing right in front of me, I never, not for 1 second, thought about physically hurting her. If anything, I just wanted to hug. If anything, I just wanted to hug her and cry on her shoulder. Marshall looks at me with sincerity. When I think about Ryle hitting you, I get absurdly angry because I love him. I do. He's been my best friend since we were kids, but I also hate him for not being better. Nothing you have done and nothing you could do would excuse any man's hands on you out of anger. Remember that, Lily. You made the right choice by leaving that situation. You should never feel guilty for that. Pride is the only thing you should feel. I had no idea how heavily any of this was weighing on me, but Marshall's words lift so much weight off me. I feel like I could float. I'm not sure those words could mean more coming from anyone else. There is something about getting validated from someone who loves Riley like a brother that's reaffirming, empowering. You're wrong, Marshall. You're pretty good. You're pretty damn good at this. Marshall smiles and then helps me to my feet. He picks up his trash bags and head back inside their apartment to find my daughter and hug her so tight. And that's the end of chapter 12. This was a long session today, and it's getting late, so I'm not gonna stay too long. But I really like the end of this chapter, and Marshall revealing more about his relationship with Elisa, and it shows that although we seem couples seem um, perfect and and so well together that we never think that these kind of things happen to all couples, and then that they go through these kind of these phases in their lives. So it's nice to show that Marshall and Elise's relationship is not perfect, but to know more about the history of their relationship, because in the first book we didn't get much. We just know about the day they well the how they met and how they fell in love, but then what comes next, all the ups and downs of a relationship are not always displayed. And here, or people don't necessarily talk about these things because they're not pretty. And um, and it's nice here to have a glimpse of that and to see a little bit of cracks in their relationship, to see that they had their tough time as well. And we can see that it helps Lily reflect on her feelings and the fact that none of the cheating or anything all the mistakes that you could do would justify the fact that you would hit someone. So, especially someone that you're supposed to love. So that puts things into perspectives. And yeah, it's nice to that this passage was added, and the fact that it's Marshall talking to Lily and showing that she's on and showing support as a male character, um, and showing support in her decision, and empowering her to stay strong, or to hold on to her position in regards to her relationship with Ryan. So yeah, it's quite a powerful scene here. Quite like it. Let me tell me, let me know in the comments what you think about this scene and what it evokes to you. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this live reading and that you'll be able to join us next time. It will be tomorrow at 11 a.m. and we will read chapters 13 and 14. See you soon. Bye bye.